The first impact comes from below, without warning, lifting the Essex out of the water as if it has struck something solid. Men lose their footing instantly. One sailor is thrown into the mast with a sharp crack. Another disappears overboard before anyone can react. Tools scatter across the deck, ropes snap loose, and the entire ship groans under the sudden stress. For several seconds, there is only confusion. Some men grab the rails. Others try to stand, slipping on the wet deck. Someone shouts to check the hull. Another yells to secure the cargo, but no one understands what they are responding to. Then the second impact hits. This one is deeper and heavier. The sound comes from inside the hull itself. Wood strains, joints split, and a long, grinding crack runs through the ship's frame, spreading from the bow toward the center. It is the kind of sound that signals something irreversible has begun. The crew freezes. Then the ocean opens. A massive white whale rises beside the ship, its head towering above the deck. It is enormous, far larger than anything the crew has ever seen. Its skin is scarred, its movement controlled, and its presence overwhelming. It does not thrash, it does not panic, it studies. For a brief moment, the entire crew stands still, staring at it. Then it charges. The collision tears into the bow, sending planks exploding outward. The front of the ship caves in, and water floods in immediately. The deck tilts sharply, throwing men across it. Barrels break loose and roll violently, smashing into bodies. One sailor is pinned and dragged across the deck, unable to escape. Another slips, reaches for a rope, misses, and disappears into the sea. Some men try to respond, rushing toward the pumps or attempting to reinforce the damaged section. Others shout orders that are lost in the noise of cracking wood and rushing water. The whale pulls back, turns slowly, and begins circling the ship. Its movement is calm and deliberate, as if it is choosing its next point of attack. Then it strikes again. The second impact hits harder. The mast snaps in half. The rigging collapses instantly, ropes whipping through the air and catching men. One sailor is dragged across the deck, his hands scraping against the wood as he tries to hold on, before being thrown overboard, still tangled in the lines. The rope tightens, and he vanishes beneath the surface. The ship is no longer stable. Water rises quickly. The deck tilts further. Panic spreads completely. Men abandon their positions and rush toward the lifeboats. There is no order anymore. One boat is lowered too quickly and crashes into the water sideways, throwing everyone out. Another becomes stuck halfway down, swinging violently against the side of the ship. Someone cuts the rope, and it drops hard, splintering on impact. Voices overlap. Commands turn into shouting. Shouting turns into chaos. The whale circles again, closer now, watching everything. Then it charges for the third time. The final impact splits the hull completely open. The structure gives way. The ship seems to fold inward as water floods in uncontrollably. The Essex begins to sink rapidly, pulling debris, cargo, and men down with it. Some jump into the ocean immediately, trying to reach the remaining boats. Others hesitate and are dragged under with the ship. The deck disappears beneath the surface. The mast sinks last. Then nothing remains. Only 3 small boats drift on the open ocean. The survivors move away from the wreck in silence. Some look back briefly, but most avoid it. The ocean closes over everything as if nothing had happened. After a while, survival takes over. They gather what supplies they manage to save. Water is divided into strict portions. Food is rationed carefully. They assign positions in the boats and attempt to maintain some level of order. At first, they still believe rescue might come. That belief fades quickly. The sun becomes relentless. There is no shade. The heat is constant. Skin burns within hours. Blisters form and burst. Salt dries across their faces and into their eyes, making it painful to see. By the second day, fewer men speak. By the third day, lips crack open and bleed. Tongues swell. Swallowing becomes painful. By the fourth day, movement slows even more. By the fifth day, the water is nearly gone. One man drinks more than his share during the night. In the morning, they notice. He denies it at first, but the container is lighter. They beat him, not out of anger, but out of necessity. Another man drinks seawater. At first, nothing happens. Then his behavior changes. He begins laughing, then shouting, then panicking. He tries to stand, loses balance, and nearly falls overboard. Others force him back down. By morning, he is dead. They push his body into the ocean without ceremony. Soon after, sharks begin to appear. At first, they are shadows beneath the boats. Then their fins break the surface. They follow constantly, staying close. One man leans too far over the side while trying to retrieve something floating nearby. He slips and falls into the water. The sharks take him instantly. The others remain silent. The nights are no easier. The heat disappears, replaced by a cold that penetrates the body. The men shake uncontrollably. Some whisper prayers. Others begin speaking to people who are not there. Then, a storm arrives without warning. Waves rise like walls, lifting the boats high before dropping them into darkness. Water floods in constantly. Lightning briefly reveals the chaos. One man is thrown from the boat and disappears. One of the boats vanishes completely. By morning, only 2 boats remain. Hunger becomes the next challenge. A bird lands on the edge of one of the boats. For a moment, no one moves. Then instinct takes over. One man grabs it, and the others follow. Within seconds, it is gone. Days later, they find a floating whale carcass. It is in a state of decay, but they cut into it anyway. The smell is overwhelming, but they force themselves to eat what little remains. Rain comes briefly, offering some relief, but it is never enough. Then the whale returns. A shadow appears beneath the surface, moving directly under one of the boats. The water lifts slightly as it passes beneath them. The men freeze, gripping the edges of the boat. It does not attack. It circles once and disappears. Hours later, it returns again. It surfaces at a distance, then dives, and heads straight toward them. The water swells beneath the boat. The whale brushes against the underside, lifting it violently. One man nearly falls overboard, but is pulled back. The boat slams back down. The whale surfaces again, closer now, releasing a powerful burst of air before diving once more. The encounters become unpredictable. Sometimes it appears in the distance, following them. Other times it comes from below without warning. On the 9th day, it strikes again. The whale rams one of the boats from beneath. The impact flips it completely. Men are thrown into the ocean, struggling to climb back onto the overturned hull. Sharks appear almost immediately. The survivors scramble desperately, pulling each other back onto the boat. One man does not survive. The whale surfaces nearby, watching again, then disappears. Now only one boat remains stable. Days pass. The sun burns. Water is gone. Hunger grows. Bodies weaken. Movements slow. Men stop speaking. Some stare into nothing. Some whisper to themselves. Some stop responding entirely. On the 12th day, The whale appears again in the distance, moving alongside them briefly before diving. On the 15th day, the ocean becomes completely still. Then the surface breaks, and the whale rises slowly in front of the boat. Its massive head emerges above the water. It remains there for several seconds, watching, before diving again. Later that night, another impact from below jolts the boat. Water splashes in, and the boat tilts dangerously before stabilizing. The whale circles beneath them in the darkness, before disappearing again. By the 20th day, the survivors are barely alive. Then, one morning, the whale returns again. This time, it surfaces directly beside the boat, closer than ever. Its eye is visible above the waterline, fixed on them. One of the men grabs an oar and strikes the water. There is no reaction. He strikes again. Then the whale moves. A sudden impact from below lifts the boat sharply. Water floods in. The boat nearly flips, but the men hold on. The whale surfaces once more, then slowly turns away and disappears. Days later, when the survivors are close to death, a sail appears on the horizon. At first, no one reacts, but it remains and grows closer. They manage to signal. One man fires the last flare. The ship turns toward them. As it approaches, the ocean becomes still again. Then, for the final time, the whale appears far behind them. It surfaces briefly before diving again. It does not attack and does not follow. The survivors are pulled aboard the rescue ship. They are given water and food, but their bodies are too weak to handle it. Some collapse immediately, some cry, others remain silent. They are alive, but they are not the same. Later, when they are safe, they speak about the storm and the sinking, but they do not describe how the whale kept returning, how it followed them, or how it chose when to strike. Far out in the ocean, beyond any route of ships, the whale continues to move through the water, unharmed and unstoppable. Because this was never just a shipwreck, it was a pursuit, and in the end, it was the whale that decided when it was over.